this cold weather and dark evening to come and be with us. We really, really do appreciate. This is a Fairtrade Forum, and as you well know, Fairtrade is really a wholesome movement with traders, producers, and you, the consumers, as you buy our product. On your seats, you'll find a bar of chocolates. We hope that you will use that to pacify yourself from the cold and just to enjoy this forum. My name is Mary Kinyua. I am the immediate past chair of Fairtrade Africa, and I'm also the immediate past chair of Fairtrade International, and I'm just a flower grower in Kenya. So very, very glad to be here in Glasgow, and I'm very excited to be hosting this panel. We specifically today are speaking about cocoa, a very, very, very interesting topic, one that gains quite a lot of traction. And just yesterday, we had Boris, the Prime Minister of Britain, just speak about actually starting to enjoy guilt-free chocolate. As fair traders, we've constantly had guilt-free chocolate. So it is very good to invite the whole world to actually start having guilt-free chocolate with us. So today, I'm delighted to be hosting this session to explore first how we can help cocoa farmers adapt to climate change, become more resilient, and of course, increase the incomes of those meeting these challenges. I'm very delighted to have a lovely panel with me, very good humans. Dr. Emmanuel Opuko, who is the CEO of the Cocoa Board, the Ghanaian Cocoa Board, which has recently been spearheading, especially the work around ensuring that the farmer receives a decent wage. We have Bismarck, a fellow producer, who is a cocoa producer from the Kuapa Cocoa Farmers Union. We have Steve Murrell, a perfect partner for us as fair traders, the CEO of the Co-op Group in the UK, one of the biggest buyers of cocoa. We have Tony Simmons, the scientist in the room, or the expert in the room, who is the executive director of Alliance CIFOR-ICRAF. And we have Melissa Duncan, who is the executive director of Fairtrade International. So thank you very much to all my panelists. And I'm going to actually invite Melissa to start us off with an overview of really what Fairtrade is and what our approach to a sustainable cocoa is and to a sustainable climate change is. Melissa.
Thank you, Mary. I just want to start with a couple of facts about fair trade, some which I think you might know and some which might surprise you. So firstly, you'll probably know that fair trade is the most recognized and trusted ethical label. We are a network of 1.9 million farmers and workers, who are members of 1,880 producer organizations. And those producers have 50% of the voting rights in the Fairtrade International system. So in this way, we say that the producers have an ownership stake in fair trade. And I know as the Fairtrade International Executive Director that if I want to make a strategic plan, I will need absolute endorsement from the producers or it won't happen. You might also know that we pay fair trade minimum prices and premiums, which is a separate payment. You might not know that last year that was over 180 million euros that was paid directly to the farmers to allocate through their premium committees. And as we're talking about cocoa today, there was about 45 million euros that went to the cocoa farmers. The other thing that you might know is that Fairtrade is known for its social standards. What you might not know is that we're also strong in our environmental standards. And within our basic standard, we have 7 environmental criteria, which ranges from deforestation to regulation of pesticides. So that's a little bit of an introduction to fair trade. Moving on to our sustainability around the cocoa sector, it's widely known that fair trade farmers are at the front line of the global climate crisis. But our planet's farmers and agricultural workers are far from victims. They are integral in developing key climate solutions. Along with increasing sales for fair trade terms, climate adaptation is at the top of the list of our fair trade farmers, and hence for all of us at Fairtrade. We know that Fairtrade farmers operate in 71 different countries, and what this means is that we recognize the uniqueness of the different areas where we work and also the different supply chains by product. So, you know, the issues facing banana growers in the Dominican Republic are very different from our sugarcane growers in Malawi, for example. And of course, climate change is affecting all of us. So at Fairtrade, we wanted to try to understand what this might mean for our producers at the product level, at the country level. And so we actually engaged a research report, which is really interesting. And I'm just going to show you one slide from that. It's 150 pages. We worked with Free University from Amsterdam and also Bern University of Applied Sciences. And they started with the feedback from the producers. They applied a sort of systemic review and then some hotspot analysis. And for those, because we're at a climate conference, if you want to understand a little bit more, the three areas, the indicators they looked at are warm spell duration index, consecutive dry days, and heavy precipitation days. So this slide shows two scenarios, a moderate scenario at the top and the extreme scenario. And it's showing very clearly the potential impact on specifically cocoa farmers. Now, the outcome from this is that there is going to be major impact from occurrence of dry periods, heat waves, and extreme rainfall. Of course, this varies by product and by region, and the report is a very rich source of data for us to use and ensure that we can help to invest in the right places and give us our best strategies for climate adaptation and overall resilience, really, mitigation as well. I won't go on about the effects of that. I'm sure Bismarck can talk about his cocoa farm and what he's seen in terms of his own impact by the climate changes. So I'll spend the last 2 minutes talking about the Fairtrade solution to this. And we really see Fairtrade as a critical component in a sort of smart mix of measures to build a sustainable cocoa supply chain. We do this in 4 ways. But before I mention that, I just want to say that there will be no sustainable cocoa sector until farmers are earning a living income. This is a human right and a precondition to accessing other human rights. This is so important for Fairtrade. But let me talk you through our strategy. We have 4 elements to our strategy. The first one, which is widely known and understood, is assurance. So this is our certification. And of course, this is which connects our producers, commercial partners, and consumers, so that ultimately the assurance leads to the Fairtrade mark being on the chocolate, for example, that you're enjoying right now. And of course, these standards are constantly being reviewed and updated. So we are currently consulting on our cocoa standard and looking at how we can strengthen that. Moving on to the farmers' incomes. This is the living income work that we've been pioneering. Ben & Jerry's were very keen to support, to understand what is a price that needs to be paid such that this translates to a living income for farmers. So we've been putting a lot of work in research, collecting good farm-level data. And a recent survey in the Ivorian households in cocoa showed that we were able to grow income by 85% between 2016 and 2020. And this is something now that we've done a lot of learning and research, we'd like to scale up and continue. Of course, that's a small part of the cocoa supply chain, and we know there's a lot more in terms of poverty and work to be done there. The other one I want to mention around how we support in a programmatic way is the Women's School of Leadership. And this might come up later in the panel because, of course, this was first supported by the Co-op here in the UK. And they saw the need and the vision, and this has been going since 2017, and we now are extending this to other countries. So again, a good example of how we can start to look at addressing the wider issues, not the symptoms, but the causes of the issues that we're facing across cocoa supply chains. Of course, all of these solutions, Fairtrade, we see ourselves as an enabler or a facilitator, because what we need is we need partners to work with us. And in this way, we see that our commercial partners, the producer networks and funders are all part of this solution. The third element is growth. And right now, we have 3 times more supply than demand for fair trade cocoa. So our absolute imperative is to grow the market for fair trade cocoa, because until we get to a certain level, we don't see the strong impact that we need. So that's always at the top of our list. And the final thing is advocacy. So understanding what's happening on the ground, taking those solutions and influencing lawmakers. For example, the EU regulation around deforestation is an area that we're actively working with other parts of the system, like ICIL, for example. So these are some of the ways which we try to work together with partners to ensure that we can build a sustainable cocoa supply chain. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to wrap up, and now let's hear from the rest of the panel.
Thank you. And I think, Melissa, you've said it so well. You can clap for her. And as farmers, we're very clear. The only way we will achieve any level of climate justice is through trade justice. Pay right. We are happy to do everything you want, but at least someone has to pay the price, whether it's in the funding, whether it is in you buying right. When you enter the shop and you buy a banana, every time I come to Europe and I get into a co-op and I buy a banana, or I go to an Aldi and I panic for my people in my whole clan, including those ones not born. So this is the kind of, this is what we want to ask you. We want to ask you, are you really paying the price for the sustainability you seek in the world? So thanks, Melissa, for that overview. And now to Bismarck, the true cocoa grower, the one who actually grows the seed that actually gives you the chocolate. Bismarck is a fair trade cocoa farmer for Kwapa Cocoa, which is one of the largest cooperatives in Ghana, if I'm not wrong. And he's one of our farmer delegates to the COP26, and also he's one of the younger farmers that are coming up in the cocoa production. And Bismarck, I just want you to take us through what your perspective, especially on the realities of climate change, are as the farmer.
Thank you very much. I think I will have to stand for now because currently I'm in a panel with big dignitaries. And for respect, I need to stand and also release stress and then just chat with you. So don't worry, don't mind me standing on the stage. Yeah, because it's a great privilege for me. Actually, it's by chance that some of us meet people like this, sit on the same desk, having a discussion. Especially my own father, Dr. Opoku, who is the Deputy CEO for Cocoa Board, my country. It's very difficult seeing such people. Before you see them, you have to pass through a lot of protocols. And here I am dining with him on the same table. It's a great privilege. Seriously, I might say it. Yeah, it's true. Back in our country, there's a saying that if you are a child, before you can dine with the big people or your adult, unless you know how to wash your hand well. Now, not that I know how to wash my hand well, that is why I'm dining with them, but because the food on the table now is not enough. Will not be sufficient for them to distribute to the individuals. Therefore, the little food we have on the table, we need to gather around it. So that is why the food on the table now, we are gathered around it. So not just because I can wash my hand properly, that is why I'm dining with them. So my host, she mentioned about the reality of ground as a producer, a cocoa farmer. You want to know about it. Seriously. That is why I gave you that scenario that the food on the table now is very small. We need to manage and then take that little food. What brought about this? Currently, globally, everybody is talking about climate issues. And as a farmer, climate has become one of the challenges for me on ground. So as we speak now, for some years back, we know farmers have been addicted to using synthetic chemicals and other things, burning, all sorts of sprayings and other things. And Because of that, our land we have now for production is very weak, has no nutrient. So as a young one like me who is ready to produce cocoa, inherit such a land, it's going to be very difficult for me. As we stand here, I don't think if you're a businessman, you are going to invest in a particular business for a number of years without profit, and you still continue doing it. So as I stand here, if I go for cocoa production the first year, second year, third, fourth year, and it's not yielding any food, do you think I will still continue? No. Back in our country, young ones like me, they would have loved to be in the agric sector, producing cocoa, but the situation on ground is not favorable. So most of them are moving to the cities to find menial jobs. I bet you, doctor can testify to us the number of applications on their desks because the young ones need better jobs because they think farming is not better off. So, these are some of the realities. I inherited bad land, farming on itself, planting cocoa. We know 3 to 4 years, 5 years, maximum 5 years, you need to be harvesting. But I can bet you the situation now, you can plant more than 10 years without no yield. And you'll be discouraged if you continue doing this. So, it is one of the issues we think climate has brought about, and it is really affecting we, the youth, who are interested to go into agriculture. Because farming situation is not conducive, production itself has reduced drastically. Cocoa Board can testify to that. I know for some years now, if you're a farmer and you don't apply a lot of fertilizers, you are not going to harvest anything. He mentioned something recently before we came to the stage that if you're a good cocoa farmer, you practice your activities well. For a hectare, you should be able to harvest more than a ton. But I can bet you, if you go to my country now, most of our land, at the end of the season, if you're able to get half a ton, then you are making it, which is really bad. So what are some of the measures we need to put in place? So because of low production, financially, we are also weak. We don't have money to do other businesses. We don't have money to build our assets. As a young one who is planning to build up my future, if I go into this production without farm, without getting profit, what will be my future? So these are some of the reasons, these are some of the realities on grounds which we need to address to everyone. That it is not easy back there. I know most of you enjoy chocolate so much, but you may ask, how does it come? Through what process does the beans come to hit the factories to manufacture or produce the chocolate for you? If I tell you, it's a lot. And not only the individual effects, environmentally, we are having challenges. Currently, the climate issue we have here has dried up our streams, rivers, which we could have used for irrigation. Currently, if there's any form of sickness spreading out within the community, it's fast spreading because the system is so open for any disease to attack us. Let's talk about this pandemic recently, the pandemic we are in now, coronavirus. I believe it has come and it wants to stay because the system has allowed it to stay. But if we were to have a good environment, I think some of these issues, they may come though, but the results wouldn't be that high as we are recording now. So we thank God. Someone may ask, is there still hope for us? Yes, for me, I think there's hope. Before this hope will be achieved, there should be an action that needs to be taken right now. But thanks to my cooperative, Kinyua Cocoa Farmers Union in Ghana, and also Fairtrade as one of the bodies who has been helping us, like myself as a farmer, who get fair prices in the market and other things. Now they are moving to a sustainable livelihood for us, because this is one of the challenges some of us are facing, because the system is not sustainable. You do it, within a short period, it is gone. So there wouldn't be any interest. But Fairtrade Kiapa Cocoa Farmers Union has come together to bring new ideas, new way of farming. That is where they introduce dynamic agroforestry system of farming for us. And as we speak now, our cooperative is made up of a member of about 100,000 farmers. But currently, we have less than 400 who are practicing it. Though it is a step up we are taking to at least spread it out. But I'll talk about it later. This dynamic agroforestry system introduced is giving us hope because initially we were doing this monocropping, monoculture system. And when the cocoa is no more, when the season is off, farmers become poor. But on this new system of farming, we do mixed cropping, crop rotation, all the practices in agriculture. So if I have a small piece of land, I can cultivate my leguminous crop, my cover crops, my annual crops, my timber species, my cocoa, and all other things on the same piece of land. So one may ask, how does it work? Well, scientifically, they will prove it is good. We have a scientific man here who will prove to that. We've done the piloting and we've seen, for me, you know, sometimes before you proceed something, you need to see the outcome. But after the piloting, realize, yeah, this new system of farming is going to help us. And we, the young ones who are interested in agriculture, can earn something out of it. So, as I mentioned, whilst we do crop rotation, mixed cropping, for a particular time, you harvest something, you take it to the market, though it might not be enough, but you still get something to depend on. Once you harvest, there's another crop also taking over. So throughout the season, there is something to harvest at a particular time. And also, it comes with food security, because you know always when you go to your farm, there's something to harvest. Not to talk about that, this project or this new system of farming has brought about sustainable livelihood, which we believe this is one of the things we are all looking forward to. Because if the system is not sustainable, we will not continue. Therefore, we believe if I go by this system, my children will come and inherit, they will also live, and their children will also come and inherit. That is what we are talking of, the sustainable livelihood. Because as we speak now, what my parents established, the cocoa is no more. I need to start again, which is not helping. I should have inherited good and productive cocoa land from my parents. But as it stands now, the system is so bad that I need to rehabilitate the whole plot, the whole farm, and then start a new cocoa production again. So just imagine the difficulties. Aside the sustainable livelihood, we have income diversification. Because we have different crop species on the same piece of land, we get money from different angles. It might not be enough, but at least we get money from different angles. Also, we are talking about climate. What are we also doing in this particular project to at least adapt to the system or mitigate against climate issue in the future? People have been saying that we, the frontline producers, we are the cause of climate issues because in establishing a cocoa field, we cut down trees. But as I stand here, I can testify to you that it is not true because currently, as we speak, most of the land in Ghana, which are being used for cocoa production, are old and infected cocoa lands. So I only go and then cut down the infected cocoa trees or unproductive cocoa trees. There are no timbers on the field to cut down. And even if they are, in the practice, we are planting more trees. And in our project, Cocoa Board, maybe I stand to be corrected, but Cocoa Board have their standard that for every hectare of a plot, at least you should get about 16 timber trees on the field. But in our project, at the end, for a hectare, you are going to get like 200 and something, over 200 timber trees. So just imagine the scenario here. Because we have been told cocoa itself comes from a forest zone. And because our human activities on cocoa, cutting down trees, creating open spaces for the cocoa is no more functioning. It's just like me coming from Africa, the hottest areas, the hottest countries in the continent, coming to Europe here. When I went out, I was shivering. I needed more coats. So it's just like bringing a fish out of the ocean to stay on the open land. It will be difficult for the fish to breathe. Just like the cocoa. We have taken the cocoa from its original habitat, that is the forest, and we've taken them to area they are not well abreast with the system. So at the first and second year, you see them growing, you see them producing, but after some time, the system becomes so dull that they cannot produce again. So we are mimicking nature, forest. In our project, we are trying to make sure cocoa lives in its original habitat, that is the forest. But this time, well designed and managed, because we know in the forest, no one goes there to manage the field. Everything is scattered. But in our project, it is really well arranged in lines, pegging and other things with spacing and all sorts of that. We do pruning so that when you come, you realize there are stratification. In the forest, cocoa is the least or the shortest cocoa, the tree, followed by the fruit trees like avocado, mango, and the rest, and then we have the timber. That is what exactly we are doing in this project currently in Ghana, or as a farmer, I'm doing. I've managed to get my own 1 hectare plot. I've started doing something. I've also helped my parents also establishing this new DAP system. And I can assure you, though we've not harvested anything yet, but we think the approach we are heading to is going to give us a better yield, better production in the future. So this is what we've started. And we need to pass a message to everyone. Maybe I might be late on the time, but let's look at this scenario. I know each and every one here have an insurance policy. They've joined one of the insurance policies and other things, and people insure their vehicles, their assets, their houses, their lives, and other things. But ask yourself, all these things, do they give life? Things that give life, like the natural resources, land, water, and other things. Instead of us to insure them, we rather ignore them. So this is the time we have to give insurance to these natural resources. Because if you don't, there's a saying that when the last tree dies, the last man on the planet also dies. So if we don't plant more trees, we don't do something that will help us as living beings, then the future we are seeking for is going to be faded out. So as farmers, we have a petition representing over 100,000 farmers back in my country. We came together, we brought our voices together in a petition form just to present to each and every one here, the worldly people, that just accept our petition. In any way you can help us build up our continent, our globe, you have to, so that we don't die now. If we wait till the next 10 years, we don't know what might happen in the next 10 years. So the action needs to be taken now. Yesterday at Green Zone, one of the panel discussion, there was a question to a producer that, so if people decide to invest in these activities, who is going to take charge? So that all these donations and other things come to us as frontline producers. But I promise you, there's one organization here, Fairtrade, who can really do that. Because ever since I joined the cooperative, followed the actions of Fairtrade, they've been really good to us. They make sure what we deserve, we get. So if I stand here and lie about Fairtrade, I'm deceiving myself. I'll go back and cry again. But I assure you, whatever you have, just believe and trust in Fairtrade. They are ever ready to make sure whatever thing happens, we as frontline producers, we receive it. So don't fear. Fairtrade is there. My last message. This is the letter for you. Search, go there and sign. And then I think some of us, our future will be built. And it is going to save a lot of life, including you. Thank you.
Good. Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Even in Africa, we know that Ghanaians, West Africans, we don't stop them. You know, it comes from the heart, you know, and I really think Bismarck has really been able to explain to us what is really happening in Ghana. The petition, of course, is on fairtrade.fair. Please just find it and sign it. We will really, really appreciate your support. We are also very grateful to be joined by Dr. Opoku, who, like I said, is a Ghanaian Cocoa Board deputy CEO. I mean, one of the boards that have really gone out of the way to lead the way in raising incomes from cocoa farmers, increasing sustainability. I had a conversation with him, and I think this is very, very foresighted what the government is doing. So, Dr. Opoku.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening to all delegates. I'm very happy to be here. And I want to make this short presentation in support of what you are doing here. The first point is that, yes, at Cocoa Board, we recognize the significance of climate change and how it is affecting the farmers' production. Until this year that we did a little over 1 million tons of cocoa, the past 3 years, or let's say 2 years, have been very, very difficult. The weather usually failed, and so production really went down. The farmers were the people that got so affected because when production is low already, they are producing at very inefficient levels. And the problem is that there is poverty. Yes, I won't sit here and say no, because what they are making out of the land they are cultivating is not economical. So at Cocoa Board, that is what we have been doing since I came to the position in 2018 with my other colleagues there. We have introduced a number of interventions. First, to address the issue of low productivity. Our main policy is to stop extensive cultivation of cocoa, and there's a reason. We want to protect the forest. So we have spoken to farmers. On every farmer forum we organized, this issue of do not extend your area under cultivation comes up strongly. And so how could we assist the farmers to raise productivity? We introduced a number of interventions. The first one we did was artificial pollination, just to help the farmers as a short-term measure, because when we came in, we realized that the entire landscape, close to 25%, had been affected by the swollen shoot virus disease. And that disease, when it gets to a farm, the only solution is to bring the entire farm down and replant. And imagine, Bismarck, he had mates. His mates, let's say he has a friend. The friend, when they went through life, they started life, his friend went to the academics, he went to the university, got a job. He decided that, look, my parents have left me this land, let me cultivate it. He spends 10 years of his first working life to cultivate, and just in the 8th year, he gets affected, his farm gets affected by the swollen shoot virus disease. What it means is that all the effort he made in the 10 years has gone down. Nothing coming out of it, because if he doesn't cut the entire farm, he doesn't treat the disease by removing every tree and replanting with a disease-tolerant variety, he gets nothing out of it. Meanwhile, his colleague who went to the other side is still earning salary. So this is what we recognize. So we treated that case as a public health, and in quotes, for cocoa. So Cocoa Board and government decided that, look, the entire area under cultivation, we have to support the farmers by taking the matter to treat the disease, removing every cocoa farm that has been affected by the disease and paying compensation to the farmers. Because when the farmer agrees that you take down his cocoa, you are denying him of livelihood. So we have to pay some compensation for the farmers so that we can treat. And if we don't treat, what is going to happen is that in the next 6 months or so, other farmers are getting affected. And so long as the virus attacks a farm, because you cannot see. You start seeing only the symptoms on the trees, and then pretty soon the tree stem then becomes swollen. That is why it's called swollen shoot. And so this is the problem we met with in many of the farms. So support the farmers to treat the farms and help them to replant. So we've taken the trouble. As I currently speak, we have done about 24,000 hectares of replanted farms. We treated those farms of the disease. We have more than 200,000 hectares of cocoa farm in Ghana that have been affected by the disease. And the only solution is to replant those farms. The farmers don't have capacity because of the yield levels. 450 kilos per hectare doesn't earn them enough money to take care of the families, and let alone go back and replant. So that was the first step. The second step is to help them to pollinate the good farms, demonstrate to them that on the same piece of land, you can raise your productivity and then increase your income from the farm. And that has been tremendous, very successful. When we started, a farmer who was doing just about 10 bags per acre did 36 bags per acre. He said, an ordinary farmer, we visited him, he said, look, Chief, when you started, initially I thought it was a joke, but I looked at it. A few weeks later, I saw that the pots started coming on the trees. So I decided to buy lather. So when the boys come and do the pollination for me and the close, I also come. The ones at the top, I did it. And this farmer on one acre produced 36 bags, which is more than 3 tons on just 1 acre. So we added another intervention on pilot basis. We decided, look, with the way rainfall pattern has been erratic, can we help the farmers, demonstrate to farmers that when you introduce irrigation, you're going to do better? We did that. A particular farmer is doing 6 tons on 1 hectare. So what it means is that we can produce cocoa from a small area that we are already producing, and even to the extent that when farmers realize that, look, you need to invest money and make more, so they can then reduce the area by investing the resources they have. They can cover, they can pay back, they have the capacity to pay back, and then make good money out of it, free part of the land to invest in other areas that will bring them additional income. The truth is that cocoa, you harvest October, February, or October, March maximum. But the first period, October, end of December to January, that is where you have a bigger volume. The rest you get in pieces, and so your income, you have a period, a concentrated period where you make the right income. So the period March going to next September, you don't make much. So if you have the resources and you can invest in other short-term crop, you can earn additional income, good income, during that period as well. When you add back what you had from cocoa, then you are able to generate enough to support yourself. But the truth is, is the market willing to pay for the cocoa that these farmers are producing? Even currently, what they are producing, you are witnesses that the income from the prices the farmers are earning are not good enough. That is why Fairtrade is campaigning to make sure that consumers accept to pay something better than what the farmers are making today. So it is on us to support the farmers to produce at efficient levels. If you are doing, the average Ghanaian farmer is doing 2 hectares. So if you are producing efficiently at the optimal level that the science can help you to achieve, and the market is willing to absorb it, then we can all say that, look, we are on track to building sustainable supply chain for the farmer. We know that we can prop up demand because today all consumers know the benefits of consuming cocoa, not only chocolate, but even cocoa as a drink. And this is something that it's information that's so available, but we need to make the effort and support and make sure that we increase the capacity of consumers to consume. That would also require some level of investment, but then it helps to sustain the farmer who is doing the production. Continuous low levels of income, continuous low productivity would seriously destroy or would disable sustainability of the sector. And that is why I am here today, and given this opportunity, I don't know, but I believe that Fairtrade, your system, you have the capacity to also disseminate this information. When we introduced a living income differential between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, well, the entire industry, the entire actors accepted. But truly speaking, some of them have taken another route just to frustrate the implementation of the system, implementation of the LID. What is happening is that, yes, we will pay LID, but how some go behind and decide that we will negotiate a negative country differential. I believe that you understand when I talk about country differential. Country differential is the premiums that Ghana and Ivorian beans attract. And so this differential is something that is added to the terminal price before the LID. The LID, we all agree that it goes to the farmer directly. So Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, the LID amount is $400 per ton, and we pay every cent out of the money straight to the farmer. And if you are selling your beans at negative country differential, what are you doing? What it means is that the terminal price is reduced by the amount of that's the negative amount that you get on the country differential. So it got to a point, Cote d'Ivoire was selling at minus $350. So if the terminal is 2,000, let's say 2,100 minus 350, who are you affecting? It's the same farmer. You are giving him LID and going the back door to take the country differential. So the farmer continues to remain where he is. He hasn't, the net gain is zero. Mm-hmm. This is the crux of the matter. We need to look at this and make sure that we continue to support the farmer, because he is at the extreme end of the supply chain, and that's the upstream of the supply chain. And if we don't, then we all face the risk of losing the industry we cherish so much. With this, I think I will end here. I'm sure as we go along, other comments can come up. Thank you very much.
I think it's clear that someone has to pay the price for all these levels of investment. So Tony is currently the Executive Director of CIFOR-ICRAF. I hope I pronounced that correctly, and currently the Director General of ICRAF. He has about 27 years on the issues of agriculture, forestry in more than about 40 countries. And Tony, just shortly, I'd like you to speak to the role of agroforestry systems in creating resilience in the climate change. just shortly.
Great. Thanks very much for staying to the end of a long day. I've been asked to speak now to wake you up a little bit, say something controversial, and allow me to apologize in advance because I can't quite read all of one's handwriting. But if we want to be controversial, I think Melissa said it. It's about price. It's about fair pricing. I have a couple of slides as wallpaper at the background. I don't know if we're going to show those. If not, we can put them we can show those. Right, this is a former vibrant cocoa landscape. Doesn't really look like a cocoa landscape, does it? How are we going to change that? How are we going to make that more resilient, more productive, more remunerative, more sustainable? It's not by having monoculture cocoa. It's not by chopping down forests and planting more single land use crop. It's going to be thinking about all of those things together. Now, maybe sometime before we thought it was vibrant. It wasn't. Paying $2,300 a ton for something that should have a price at $4,000 a ton is actually criminal. We are keeping those farmers in poverty. So like Bismarck, allow me to stand up to show respect to the farmers. Cocoa farming is a rich person's indulgence for a poor person's hard labor. And we've got to shift that balance and change it. And groups like Fairtrade are doing a great job to do that. But fair is a binary adjective. It's either fair or it's unfair. And what they're working on is fairer trade. It's fairer to the farmer. But we still have a huge leap to go. So please listen and back and follow these advocacy statements. And our job through agroforestry, through science, is to help inform that, to show those evidence and solutions. Next slide, please. And here, digital and geospatial solutions can really assist us. We need to understand what's happening out there in the landscape and to manage that landscape as part of an integrated system. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, they don't have a deforestation problem. They don't have a cocoa problem. They have a rural transformation problem. That's the problem in front of them, and a social integration problem. To increase equity, to show that development together. And that's the challenge that Emmanuel and Bismarck and Melissa and others are working on. And we've got to support them with evidence, solutions, and science. Next slide, please. So this is a very detailed analysis of a 120,000 hectare forest in Cote d'Ivoire. On the left-hand side, you can see a lovely paint-by-numbers color-coded map of that forest. And what it shows is the year it was deforested. Now, most companies have chosen 2008 as their baseline, but you can see that from that color-coded map, 70–80% of the deforestation has happened after that. So is it really deforestation-free cocoa? We've got to use the tools and evidence to support that rural transformation, that change. Wherever you go in the world, it typically goes coffee, cocoa, rubber, oil palm. And if we want to carry on eating cocoa, we've got to pay a fair price for it. We've got to manage that landscape in the right way. Please, Bismarck, don't throw any fertilizer on the land unless there's 1% soil organic carbon in it. You'll be wasting your money. Doesn't matter how much fertilizer you put on it. How do we bring that back? It's through agroforestry. It's through new practices. It's through understanding and learning what we're trying to do. And on the last slide, I'll wrap up, is we've tried to fix low cocoa productivity and viability, profitability, by addressing one of those challenges, one of those problems. And unless we look at all of them together, we're going to keep failing. But amongst all of that, the low farmer income, the social capital, the child labor issues, that's 70% of the problem. So health professionals know that there's 200 causal factors for heart disease, 200, but they focus on 3. Smoking, high blood pressure, and cholesterol, because those three account for 70% of heart attacks. So what are those things that account for most of the challenges in the cocoa sector? It is low farmer income, low human and social capital, and child labor. Those are the things that we got to fix. And Fairtrade and others have done a great job of raising awareness, playing the role of those advocates in a brilliant way. But we're focusing not on the 3 things or the 5 things or the 10 things, but on a whole shopping list. There's not one developing country, national government in the world that is a champion of conventional certification. We've got to disrupt it, change it, move it, try new things. Because imagine Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. The demand was 10 times what was being produced. They could, Emmanuel could quite really say, well, I know you Europeans, you love certification, so we're going to do the certification rules now, okay? Listen to this. Okay, you have to promise not to sell cocoa if it's shipped in vessels that don't report their carbon emissions. Oops, there goes the whole of Europe. Sorry. You've got to guarantee that you don't sell it in countries that subsidize inorganic agriculture. Oops, there goes North America as well. And surely you must agree with this one. You must do. You've got to guarantee you won't sell your chocolate to any racist customers, because racism is a bad thing. So please don't sell your chocolate. And of course we go, well, that's ridiculous. Well, some of the interventions and policy instruments that are coming to developing countries, they're too polite, Emmanuel, too polite, Bismarck. You should be saying, hang on a moment, that's ridiculous. And it's only going to be groups like Fairtrade and others who can be that convening power, play that actor, that supporter, and understanding those dimensions that will help us change that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. I think you say what we all think, as to take one thing at a time and just to make sure that we're getting results from that, instead of tackling the whole world and never getting a single result. But yeah, again, it goes back to just pay right. Finally, I'd like to introduce Steve. Steve, I hope you haven't been waiting for too long. He's the CEO of the Co-op Group, like I said earlier, here in the UK, and one of the Fairtrade's strongest supporters, and have been for many years, I think 26 now, he said, benefiting countless communities all around the world. Just this last month, they launched a $300 million campaign in Africa around climate activities, and this is just one of the many activities they actually have. And Steve, what I'd like to really hear from you is, as a CEO of a leading UK retailer, where is the business in this? What is the business perspective in this?
Thanks, Mary. I think firstly, just to say thank you to my fellow panelists. I mean, I've sat in on many conferences, but found the last 40 minutes really interesting. I mean, the insight that Melissa, Bismarck, Dr. Emmanuel and Tony have given you has in a way been cooperation in action, and it's quite humbling to hear the issues that they've described to you this evening. Bismarck, I'm about twice as old as you, so I'm going to stay seated, if that's okay. I hope if any of you haven't already, try your chocolate bar. It's the best chocolate in the UK. The reason why I would encourage you to try it is that there is nothing left in the shops, given that the team went and raided the shelves to put it on the chairs this evening. But it's well worth trying, because at the end of the day, my job as the retailer is to take the hard effort of Bismarck, the hard effort of fair trade accreditation, and listen to the influencing of Dr. Emmanuel and Tony to put the product on the shelf, and to make sure that in doing that, my organisation pays a growing and fairer price for that product. Now, over these last 26 years, as Mary says, we've had a relationship, a marriage with the Fairtrade organization, and it's been a fruitful one. But even before 1999, we'd actually had a relationship with Cafe Direct for a few years. And so it's great here in 2021 that we are all talking about cocoa farmers and the importance of their sustainable future. Back in 1999, when we started with Fairtrade, the UK market was around about £22 million of sale. Today, it's close to £2 billion of sale. And within that, cocoa and chocolate make up about 374 million. It's something that the UK public love to eat, but it's critical for organisations like ours. But I think if you take away one of the themes from what you've heard, the need to get other organisations to do the same thing is to face into this sustainable need to help farmers like Bismarck and other Guianan cocoa producers get an increasingly fairer price for their product, which I think UK consumers have shown they're prepared to pay for, and they will continue to pay for. Our relationship's been a very strong one. Other UK retailers have slightly aired to other certification relationships. My personal view is that Fairtrade remains the gold standard. It champions the things that are important to the cooperative group around paying a fair price, around empowering the producer and giving them the chance to enjoy a sound and prosperous living. And we're going to take that relationship even further. We're very pleased to back the work that Fairtrade are now doing in Africa around climate sustainability in those key areas of tea and coffee. And I think that's a continual example how we, as the largest cooperative in the UK, want to continue to make a difference for producers in the third world to make sure that they do get the £4,000 a tonne that Tony referred to, rather than some of the prices that they've been offered in the past. Because I think this is going to become more and more an obvious reality as we seek to heal the nation and the planet, that prices of food production do warrant a greater payment for, and that we need the likes of Bismarck, young farmers, to be able to keep on producing great products that enable us to put it on the shelf and delight millions of shoppers that come into our shops each week. So I'm very proud of the relationship that we've had. As Mary says, it's 26 years old. I'm hoping that it will become another 26 years old, well beyond my time, but it's been good for us, and hopefully it's been good for the value chain that you've heard the panelists speak about this evening.
Maybe just, sorry, Steve, just tell me a little bit about your consumers, the customers. What are they saying? What insights can we borrow as farmers and as businesses from the consumers' feedback?
Yeah, we do a consumerism report every year, and people should feel confident that there is a growing demand for these types of products. If you looked at total ethical expenditure, it's now broken through 100 billion. If you looked at the expenditure in the space of food and drink, it's now topping 14 billion, growing by 12%. And if you looked at the growth of fair trade over that same period, that's growing by 14%. So there is a real demand for products that are grown in this way through retailers such as ourselves to go and procure, build a relationship, and make sure that it goes on our shelves. So the door is opening, and that can only be a good thing.
Oh, good. Just the final question, sorry for bombarding you with a lot of questions, but where do we go from here, especially for businesses? Where do you see as the next step from here?
Well, I think that the theme of this conference has to be one of collaboration and cooperation, and the truth is that not one country, not one leader, not one business can deal with this climate issue on our own. And there obviously is a strong link to sustainable production, as we've heard about this evening, facing into that climate dilemma. So businesses have to come together. It's no good the co-op's plan being more sustainable than the Sainsbury's plan or the Tesco plan or the Waitrose plan. We've got to find common solutions to common problems. As both our Prime Minister and Alok Sharma has said, where Paris promised, Glasgow has to deliver now. The clock is ticking, and we've got to, as businesses, reduce our carbon emissions now, but continue to develop relationships, as we're talking about here, with the likes of more progressive cocoa producers, so that collectively we can start to heal our planet. But time is running out, so coming together, collaboration, working on common themes, absolutely critical.
Great, good. Thank you very much. So I will allow 1 or 2 questions from the audience. We have a mic here at the front. In the middle, we have 2 mics and 1 here. A quick question, and then we can wrap up. Okay, the gentleman, then the lady.
Thank you very much. My name is Ralston Moore. I'm from the Caribbean. I work now as an independent consultant, formerly working in the World Bank and with the Global Environment Facility and other organizations. So, as someone from the Caribbean, we also tend to speak from the heart. I guess it's the West African descendant in us. So, from the Caribbean, we have the Grenada Chocolate Factory, which has been doing chocolate using photovoltaics as the basis for its energy source. Also using a sustainable model, and it's one of the first being to borrow actual places that actually did it, and it won awards and things like this. So I think fair trade, as a consumer, fair trade in the past, as a student, etc., I think we need to thank fair trade for what it has been doing. But I'm also a bit of a disruptor, like the gentleman over there has said. So how can we move to getting more companies from countries that actually produce the cocoa, producing the chocolate, rather than it being produced by large companies, even though they're getting a fair price? That is surely where the actual real value is, in not only getting more resources back down to the farmers, but the countries themselves which are producing the cocoa. Because the commodities industry, as far as for me, is full up of oxymorons. Yorkshire tea, but tea don't grow in Yorkshire. Italian coffee, there ain't no coffee trees in Italy. Swiss chocolate, yeah, well, Swiss don't grow cocoa. So until we get Ghanaian chocolatiers based in the UK, based in Brussels, based in other parts of Europe, actually taking the cocoa and making the chocolate, and we have that kind of value chain where more money goes back into the country. I think that is where we should aim to go. So my question is, what training is Fairtrade and other organizations, what are they doing to help to facilitate this? Because surely this has to be one of the ways in which we move to more sustainable consumption. Thanks.
Great. Great question. I'll take the second question, then we can answer both questions at the same time.
My name is Noora Simola. I'm from Food and Forest Development Finland. And for a long time, I've found it really unfair that farmers, smallholder producers that are, applying agroforestry system, restoring forests and so on, don't get any benefits from these current carbon markets. They are not given any compensation for increasing the carbon sinks in the lands they manage. And resilience is about, good carbon pathways as well. And a couple of years ago, I was so happy when Fairtrade started to collaborate with Gold Standard. That, okay, now there is going to be this kind of fair scheme for carbon, where smallholders can also have their share. But so far, I have not seen, for example, this kind of Ghana and Ivory Coast primary examples where I would think that, this kind of fair carbon schemes could be applied. But I have not seen any projects yet. I have understood that there is energy efficient cooking stoves and these kind of projects done with this collaboration with Gold Standard. But where are these fair carbon schemes, that include land use, the good land use practices that the farmers are going towards and are already applying? Thank you.
Good. Great. So I will ask Dr. Opoku first about, have we thought about being chocolatiers ourselves in Ghana specifically? Melissa, if you'd say, what is it as Fairtrade we're doing to help that conversation? And then Jean-Paul, if you can actually respond to the question of the Gold Standard collaboration.
Well, yes, we have thought about that, but look at it from this angle. Why is it that Europeans are consuming more chocolate than, let's say, origin? It's a matter of income. Yes. And whilst from the developing country perspective, the income levels are lower, you find the people in the middle income group and the higher income group that together do not come up, do not exceed the people in, let's say, the poverty group. So you don't get more people consuming chocolates in origin countries. Having said that, and not very happy about that, we've invested a lot of resources trying to encourage using the health benefits of cocoa to encourage even people who may not be ordinarily spend on chocolate to start looking at the alternatives. Because if you take, for example, the natural cocoa powder, it's a very nutritive cocoa product that we encourage our people to consume. It has a lot of health benefits, and that is where we're hammering, making sure that people get to know and then increase the level of consumption of the product.
But do you see us making the chocolate in Ghana, in Accra? Do you see us opening a...
Yes, we produce chocolate. And the interesting thing is that whilst many people don't really eat chocolate, when it gets to days like the Christmas and Valentine's Day, you see long queues of people buying chocolate. And the chocolatiers, we have the main cocoa processing company that supplies the largest volume of consumer chocolate in Ghana. And then we have also individuals, what we call artisanal chocolate producers also coming in to support. But many people consume chocolate, but it's seasonal. Christmas, Valentine's, because we have renamed Valentine Chocolate Day, and so we actually launch, and even before that, you see long queues of people buying chocolate. So gradually, we believe the campaign is yielding results, because in the past it wasn't like that. But now we see more people consuming. It will take a while, and as income levels rise, we will find more people buying chocolate to consume.
Good. All right. What do you think, Melissa?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. So Ralston, is your question? Yeah, great, thank you. The first thing I would say is that for producers to move up the value chain, which is something that we see as very important in fair trade, they need to be strong cooperatives. So the first thing that we see is about strengthening cooperatives. And we have some active programs, for example, in West Africa to help and support strengthening programs, strengthening cooperatives to be stronger, because they need to be strong such that they can invest and develop their own businesses. Because, you know, our cocoa farmers are business people. You know, they are small business people. They're making investment decisions. Are they planting more trees? Are they investing in other inputs? But for cooperatives need to be strong to move up the value chain. So that's where we see the real input level there. The other thing, of course, is how it's entirely up to the cooperatives and the producer organizations how that a 45 million euro premium that went to cocoa farmers last year is spent. That is not dictated by fair trade. You will get the best results for the people deciding how they spend their money, and whether that is on training or facilities. And we know when we look at last year's figures, about 10% of the premium was directly invested in climate adaptation activities. So these are two ways: a cooperative strengthening program, such that strong cooperatives can decide to invest and develop their systems up the supply chain, and also just their own ownership of how that premium is used.
Thanks, Melissa. Yes, Bismarck.
Yeah, concerning the cooperative, strengthening some of the cooperative, like myself, our cooperative, one of the chocolate companies, Divine Chocolate, our cooperative have about 20% shares in it, and I think I have one here. So I believe this chocolate I hold here is a bean from my farm. Yeah, I can testify this particular chocolate. It's a bean from my farm. So like you asked, some of the already strengthened cooperative are already doing something. So Divine Chocolate is not based in Ghana, but we already have a 20% share. And I believe when you are able to build up, like Melissa said, we can move ahead. Thank you.
Great.
So go and buy Divine Chocolate so that I'll get more profits from it.
JP?
Okay, thank you. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Juan Pablo Solis. I'm Senior Advisor Climate Change in Fairtrade International in Bonn. So thank you so much for your question. And let me also invite you. We are going to have another side event Wednesday the 11th. Together with Fair Climate Fund and WUCAM, we are going to talk about carbon markets and the interaction between these markets and sustainable development goals. What I can say about your question is, yes, we have been implementing the climate standard to offsetting fair trade carbon credits in the market for about 5 years. But the carbon market is a very complex market to develop. No? We have good cases in Burkina Faso, Lesotho. The case of Bismarck in Ghana is a good example where a company is also reducing emissions and compensating, although they don't do that directly purchasing carbon credits, but they are paying a premium on that. There's other examples in Ethiopia, Peru, and India, etc. So just to mention the market, the carbon market is complex and it's very politicized. No? It depends on the will of people, and now we tend to see that there's a little bit more hope because regulatory frameworks probably will encourage more companies to really commit. No? And for those that are not so familiar with Fairtrade climate standard and our Fairtrade carbon markets, carbon credits, sorry, to say that we base the carbon credits with the same principles as we trade any other commodity. So we set a minimum price for carbon credits, and we try to guarantee human environmental due diligence while delivering carbon credits. So it's a way to implement the fair trade philosophy in the carbon market, but it's a very complicated market to really make it available. But we are trying to do our best.
Great, thanks. Thank you very much for the questions you've asked. It's very difficult to summarize such a rich dialogue, but I think this session has underlined that if we want to have guilt-free chocolate, we have to tackle the issues of sustainability in cocoa. Then a lot of money is required. The 100 billion, for example, promise needs to be delivered. We need to pay right, and this starts at our level. There's government level, but there's what, as individuals, as consumers, we can do every day. It also means directly resourcing the farmers. As you've heard from Dr. Opuko and Bismarck, the farmers have the solutions. They are the experts. They're the ones living with the problem. In the north, it could be a white paper. In the south, it is the problem living every single day. We need to help the farmers understand how they can adapt to climate change, grow more cocoa like we've had, and also just be a little bit much more sustainable. We need to give everyone a chance. Please sign our petition on fairtrade.bfair. Also, lobby your councils. And always remember, when you buy that chocolate, ask yourself whether it has a mark of fairness. Thank you. We really, really appreciate your presence here. We as producers feel heard by your presence. And we really hope that moving forward, we shall have sustainable cocoa. Thank you very much and have a good night.